Sometimes the kindest act is the cruelest one. And conversely, cruelty can sometimes be the truest form of kindness. This paradox has puzzled humanity for centuries. We're taught that kindness, compassion, and mercy are our highest virtues. But what if I told you that these very virtues, when misapplied, can cause the greatest suffering? Think about a surgeon. They cut into your flesh, causing terrible pain. Is that an act of cruelty? Or is it kindness in disguise? Machiavelli, perhaps the most misunderstood thinker in history, understood this deeply. He wrote about what I call "be cruel to be kind," one of his most controversial yet most accurate philosophies. Machiavelli and the philosophy of mercy. In The Prince, Machiavelli writes, "There is cruelty that is good and cruelty that is bad." He argues that a wise leader must know how to use good cruelty, harsh, decisive actions that might cause pain but are necessary and ultimately benefit the greater community. These words were written in Renaissance Italy, a bloody time of conspiracies and instability. But don't be quick to dismiss them as relevant only to that era. This paradox holds true to this day. Good cruelty, according to Machiavelli, has clear characteristics. It is swift, decisive, and creates long-term order and stability. It's like surgery, painful but designed to heal. In contrast, bad mercy, despite good intentions, tends to prolong suffering, create chaos, and ultimately cause more harm than good. It's like refusing surgery for a patient because you fear hurting them, only to let the disease spread and kill them. Machiavelli wasn't an advocate for senseless violence, as many misinterpret. He simply recognized a harsh truth about human nature and power. Sometimes decisive actions that seem harsh actually bring about the greatest long-term benefit for everyone. Historical and modern examples. In American history, Abraham Lincoln faced an unimaginable decision: continue a bloody civil war or accept peace at the price of maintaining slavery. His decision to continue the war cost hundreds of thousands of lives. It was a cruel decision, but it also ended an even crueler institution: slavery that had imprisoned millions in suffering. Or in World War II, the decision to drop atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, a horrific act that killed tens of thousands. Yet many historians argue it ended the war sooner, saving millions who might have died had the invasion of Japan proceeded. In modern business, we see this principle still holds true. Steve Jobs was famous for his harsh leadership style, willing to fire employees who didn't meet his standards, bluntly criticizing subpar work. Many called him cruel, but that very leadership style helped Apple create breakthrough products and become a great technology company. CEOs often face cruel decisions, shutting down failing divisions, laying off employees to save the company. These decisions cause pain for some people, but may save the livelihoods of many others. Conversely, merciful leaders who delay difficult decisions often find themselves having to lay off more employees later, or worse, letting the entire company fail. Even in everyday life, we see this principle. Think about parenting. Parents who overindulge their children, setting no boundaries or discipline, seem very kind in the short term. The child is happy, but long term? They fail to develop self-control skills, don't learn to handle disappointment, and often become selfish, unable to overcome challenges. In contrast, parents who set reasonable discipline, refusing unreasonable demands, requiring homework to be completed, enforcing consequences for breaking rules, seem cruel in the child's eyes. But long-term, this is true love, developing them into responsible, self-sufficient adults. The same happens in relationships. Avoiding difficult conversations to keep the peace seems kind, but it often leads to hidden resentment, unresolved conflicts, and eventually broken relationships. Confronting issues directly, though difficult, usually yields better long-term results. The psychology behind "be cruel to be kind." But why do we so often avoid necessary cruelty? Psychology provides answers. Humans tend to focus on short-term pain over long-term benefit. We want to be liked more than respected. We fear bad reputations, social judgment, and above all, we often want to see ourselves as good people, even if that means doing ineffective or even harmful things in the long run. In psychology, there's a concept called pathological altruism. When people focus so much on avoiding short-term hurt that they neglect long-term development. Parents who overprotect their children, teachers who avoid criticizing underperforming students, doctors who don't tell hard truths about health conditions, all examples of pathological altruism. The famous marshmallow experiment showed that the ability to delay gratification, to endure short-term hardship for long-term benefit, is one of the strongest predictors of success in life. Children who could resist eating a marshmallow immediately to earn more later typically performed better in education and life. This is exactly the lesson Machiavelli wanted to convey. Sometimes, the ability to endure or impose short-term pain for long-term benefit is a sign of true wisdom. How to apply the philosophy of be cruel to be kind. So how do we apply this philosophy wisely in our lives? In leadership and management, recognize that difficult decisions are sometimes necessary. Direct, honest feedback, when delivered constructively, may seem harsh, but helps employees grow faster than empty praise. Appropriate discipline, though difficult, builds a culture of accountability and high performance. As one CEO said, "I'd rather be kindly candid than unkindly silent." He understood that true kindness sometimes requires honesty, even when it's hard to hear. In personal relationships, we need to recognize the boundary between genuine kindness and fake kindness. Learn to say no when necessary without feeling guilty. Understand that sometimes, to truly be good to someone, you must tell them things they don't want to hear. In a toxic relationship, cutting ties, though painful, can be true kindness to both parties. Delaying the inevitable only prolongs suffering. In personal development, self-discipline is a form of good cruelty to yourself. Setting high standards, forcing yourself to work hard, facing uncomfortable truths about your weaknesses, all may be uncomfortable, but are the only way to grow. As Jim Rohn said, we must all suffer one of two pains, the pain of discipline or the pain of regret. The pain of discipline weighs far less. Ethical boundaries. Of course, there's an important boundary to recognize. When does cruel mercy become true cruelty? The ultimate purpose must always be greater benefit. Temporary cruelty is only justified when it truly leads to better outcomes for all involved. Otherwise, it's just cruelty in disguise. We must be vigilant against self-deception, using this philosophy to justify truly cruel behavior. We need to ask, am I really doing this for the greater good, or am I just rationalizing bad behavior? The real art is knowing balance. Not every situation calls for harshness. Sometimes, ordinary mercy, not cruel mercy, is appropriate. Wisdom lies in knowing the difference. As Aristotle taught, virtue lies in the middle path between extremes. The paradox of be cruel to be kind is one of Machiavelli's deepest insights, and perhaps one of his most misunderstood. It's not a call for pointless cruelty. It's a reminder that true kindness sometimes requires temporary harshness, that sometimes we must accept short-term pain to create long-term benefit. Surgeons understand this. Professional athletes understand this. Good parents understand this. And great leaders do too. Sometimes, the true cruelty is refusing to do what's difficult, and instead doing what's easy. That's the timeless lesson from Machiavelli, one our modern world needs more than ever.